Yeah. All right, we are here for another week and another Conscious Approach video. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Before we get started, want to remind everybody that if you're watching this video on the YouTube channel, please, pretty please, hit the subscribe button, subscribe to the channel so you can get notification for all new content published to the channel. We certainly appreciate you supporting logical content. We certainly appreciate you watching the videos because we have a blast doing this stuff. So we just want to be able to, make the commentary for the audience in the way that the audience wants to hear or see the commentary. But as usual, my name is JV Wins, and I'm joined by my buddy Dogon SS to talk about some interesting stuff that we want to talk about this week. First up, we want to talk about the greatest of all time, Tom Brady. So Tom Brady, you know, it's kind of some weird. Tom Brady, for the most part, throughout his career, right, has been able to. Uh, he's been able to have an unscathed career from the standpoint that his personal business hasn't really been out there on the street like that. Now, having said that, by no means is his personal business out there now. But what's interesting about this and what we wanted to talk about is apparently, allegedly, there is some friction going on in the Tom Brady Giselle Bündchen household because apparently there is there are some issues that stem from Tom Brady's decision to unretire. So Tom Brady had retired from the NFL at the conclusion of the previous season. 40 days into his retirement, he unretired and decided that he wanted to come back. The circumstances around his retirement were a little strange because it was like, you unretired after 40 days. It's just a weird thing. You don't really see that every day from people who retire from professional sports like that, let alone somebody who is as accomplished as Tom Brady, 7 Super Bowls, MVPs, all that good stuff. So it's well documented that there was an expectation that once Tom Brady had decided that retirement was on the docket, that he would be more available for family time. It is well documented again that his wife, Giselle Bündchen, is eagerly anticipating Tom Brady's retirement so that he can be more available to her and to his family. So apparently, there is alleged, once again, I want to stress that this is all alleged, it's all hearsay at this point. But apparently, there is some beef between the two of them because she's upset that he decided to unretire. So, and then there's some other weird stuff going on where apparently Tom Brady was dead set on retiring, but the plan was for them to get some kind of secret Illuminati New World Order group together to go in on owning the Miami Dolphins. But that whole thing blew up after the whole Brian Flores racial discrimination lawsuit debacle. So that put the kibosh on that whole deal. And so there's speculation that Tom Brady decided to unretire, at least in part because that happened. Where it's like, well, I'm not going to own the team and be in Miami no more, so let me go back to playing football. And apparently, Giselle Bündchen isn't a fan of his decision to unretire. So pulled up this article real quick. This article is from Yahoo. And it says Tom Brady and Giselle Bündchen are back to business as usual amid reported marital drama. Tom Brady and Giselle Bündchen are carrying on with their regular day-to-day activities amid the rumors that there might be problems in their marriage. They've each been spotted getting back to business as usual. However, they aren't doing it together right now. Brady took some time out to fly to New York to see oldest son Jack's football scrimmage, where a source told people he was in great spirits and chatted to all the parents. Jack is his child from his relationship with ex-girlfriend Bridget Moynihan, and he's showing quite a talent for the sport, just like his dad. While the NFL star was spending quality time with Jack, the 42-year-old supermodel was splashing away with son Benjamin 12 and Vivian 9 at a Miami area water park. Bündchen was spotted happy and having fun at the Tidal Cove Water Park in Aventura, Florida on Sunday, according to a People Insider. Now, I don't know where they get these people from. Who are these insiders? who are talking about how the marriage is in trouble. But it goes on to say all the fuss began when Brady took 11 days off from preseason training due to personal reasons. That's when the speculation about the couple's marriage began. Quote, there's been trouble in the marriage over his decision to unretire. Giselle has always been the one with the kids, end quote. A source explained to Page Six. Brady has acknowledged his wife's sacrifices on Sirius XM podcast Let's Go with Tom Brady, Larry Fitzgerald, and Jim Gray, sharing, quote, I think my wife has, held down the house for a long time now. And I think there are times she wants to, and I think there are things she wants to accomplish. She hasn't worked as much in the last 10, 12 years, just raising our family and kind of committing to being in a life in Boston and then moving to Florida. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback retired for 40 days and then changed his mind to return to the 2022-23 NFL season. It might be a decision that didn't sit well with Bündchen, who was reportedly excited to have Brady back in the family fold. Brady perhaps Brady perhaps added a little fuel to the fire by stating, quote, it's all personal. And, quote, there's a lot of ish going on, end quote, at his preseason training camp press conference last week. But Bündchen is staying unusually quiet and letting her husband catch the heat. So that's where we stand with that. So there's all different kind of angles to tackle with this. Obviously, there's the relationship angle, the marriage angle, the Tom Brady Bündchen and him retiring and unretiring. And I guess the interesting thing about all of this is the way in which this is the first time that we have ever detected that there might be some issues going on in Tom Brady's personal life that could potentially go public. So, what were your thoughts, or did you have any thoughts on how this is all currently playing out with Tom Brady and his decision to unretire?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like what you said, as far as him not having any personal issues out for, dirty laundry reasons, that, people can actually, get into the weeds and roll around in the mud in his personal business. He's kept it pretty close to the chest all his entire career. So the only times we would hear messy stuff with Tom Brady is when it was with Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft. This is the first that we're actually hearing any that I'm at least hearing some stuff about him and his wife and his family. Her gripe is legitimate, I think, especially since she's a supermodel, right? So
Yeah,
she's a
she's
high
all kind of things. Yeah.
yeah, so she's a high end person, and yeah, she wants to get her career going and moving, and so I don't necessarily blame her for that. I kind of would have assumed that they would have been a little bit more modern in how they were, raising their family, where, mom works and dad works and somebody else is taking care of the kids. But they seem to have more of a traditional type set where, she's, holding it down. Is this selfish from Tom Brady? Um, Possibly, but this is Tom Brady we're talking about. So, apparently he has that gene that we talked about before, where we were talking about Jordan and Kobe and stuff like that, where this is his life. And I've seen the insane look in his eyes when a receiver drops the ball. So he is very passionate about football. So I'm not surprised that he unretired. Um, it kind of sucks. I'm not really a Tom Brady guy, but as you know, he got out of New England for whatever reason. I just didn't have as much disdain for him, and I grew to appreciate his skill set. So with all of that, like, catch me 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, goody for his ass. But yeah, I don't want to see this happen. Um, I'm actually I'm not a fan of his, but I definitely appreciate what he does on the football field. So I think this is a little. I think this sucks. So hopefully this is just rumor and hearsay. So what were your initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think it sucks too. And I turned the corner on Brady a long time ago. I think I
Mhm.
turned the corner on Brady after they beat the Seahawks that year
With the
when it
Russell
was on
Wilson
the
pass?
yeah.
Oh man.
uh, when they were on the 1 yard line, and everybody says run the ball, Marshawn, and instead they tried to throw it in there, and Malcolm Butler intercepts the ball, and that's it. I think after that, I realized that it was better on my blood pressure to just not actively root against Tom Brady.
Getting on the
So
right
yeah, I
side of
turned
it.
yeah. It's just for what at this point, and then and at the same time, it's like, what am I really fighting against at this point? Like, he's won like four. Like, at that point, he had won like four.
Hmm.
So, it's like, what am I really fighting against? It's a foregone conclusion. Like, once he hit the 4 or 5 mark, it was just like, why continue to root against him for what? Whatever is going to be said is at this point a bit irrefutable given how successful his career has been. So
Hmm.
it's just like, you might as well just not, you don't necessarily have to root for him, but appreciate the achievements is where I came around. I'm no longer somebody who actively roots against him. Now I kind of am curious, and I think I said this before. I'm curious to see how much he can run it up. I'm just fascinated by it. Can he win 8? Like, I'm just fascinated by that. So yeah, I don't really have issues with Brady. And so because I don't have issues with Brady, I find this to be unfortunate, but I also don't know the intricacies of their relationship, which is why I'm curious as to who these insiders are and how stuff like this gets out, where it's like, oh yeah, she's unhappy and they're fighting. Who are you and how do you know that?
Right.
It's just weird. Like, what are we doing here? But yeah, I think that that's a good angle that you had there, where you mentioned how it appears as though they were conducting their relationship from a less modern perspective. And it seemed to be more traditional, where while Brady was an active player, she appeared to be the one who was kind of doing the child rearing.
Hmm.
Um, in order to and she sacrificed those years where she could still be productive in her own career for the sake of raising the family, which is an admirable thing to do.
Hmm.
I'm just curious, like, what fascinates me about this is that crazy gene. And you brought up the Jordan thing, and you brought up the Kobe thing. And this is where I don't think LeBron should be put in categories with people like this, because I don't think LeBron is this way.
Hmm.
Like, what is it about these people that's so insane that 7 Super Bowls is not enough? Like,
Why?
why did you? What makes you come back? Like, why? And so, like, I don't know whether I don't. And that's the thing. I feel like years from now, we're gonna know what really went on. We're gonna
Hmm.
know whether he really came back because he just wanted to play that bad, whether he came back because of the whole Dolphins thing, whether it was something else, a combination of all of the above. I feel like in the future we're gonna know the real truth, but I just don't think right now we know everything, and all the ducks aren't aligned. Like, for someone as uber successful as him, and essentially you went out on top. I mean, they didn't win in the last season that he was there prior to coming back, but they also didn't lose in embarrassing fashion. Like, they made it to, I believe, the NFC Championship game, and they just lost to the Rams, who went on to win the Super Bowl. So you still kind of sort of went out on top because you won the Super Bowl in the previous year. Yet and
Hmm.
still, what is it about your brain that makes you say, despite all that, at 45 years old, I'm going to come back and play again?
I'll say he's
Um,
45. That's what I was looking up right now.
yeah. So it's like, what makes you do that? And I think that might be at, I think that might be somewhat at the core of any sort of alleged. Again, I want to stress, I don't know. We're just using this as content, and this is allegedly what's being put out there. But if there is a rift between the two, that could be at the core of what the source of her discontent is, which is, how much more do you want? And this is where people like Tom Brady are just completely unrelatable to the rest of the human population, who can understand that at a certain point, I've had enough fill of this and I'm ready to move on to something else. I cannot comprehend what goes on in the mind of a person like Tom Brady or Michael Jordan that makes you say this is not enough. I truly believe that if Jordan was able to continue to do what he did physically, he wouldn't have retired either. He just literally couldn't run and jump anymore.
Mhm.
And Tom Brady's situation is a little different because you're a quarterback. So as long as you're not getting hit and you're protected, you can play a little longer. Especially because of the way that he takes care of his body the way LeBron does, where it's like he
Mhm.
probably has the physical body of a 30-year-old man, even though he's 45.
Mhm.
So that level of insanity is something that I find fascinating because I don't know if it's a genetic predisposition. I don't know whether that's something that you're born with or whether that's something that you can develop and it just takes the right set of circumstances in order to develop it. But clearly that is a gene that his wife does not have. Because if I don't think their relationship would have lasted very long if they were both psycho like that, because they both would have said, "I need to do what I got to do, and if you can't get on board with that, then we're gonna have to cut this thing short." And since it's lasted this long, my guess is she's not psycho like that. And there's probably only room in a marriage or a relationship for there to be one psycho. And so, Psycho Tom is Psycho Tom. I just don't know at what point you've had enough. And like the guy has like what, 3 MVPs, Super Bowl MVPs, records, touchdown passes, passing yards, 7 championships. That will never be eclipsed. I don't care who we're talking about or what year we're in. We are not going to see we're not going to see one single player win more than 7 Super Bowls. I just don't think that'll ever happen. Um, Again, I could be wrong. Maybe I'll be dead and gone and in the dirt by the time something like that is possible, but I just don't see that happening. So at what point is enough enough? And that's what I find fascinating about this. And I think if this is true, then I think, Giselle is probably asking the same questions. Bro, hey, bro, like at what point is enough enough? Like when have you had enough of your fill of this?
Mhm. Well, I agree with that, and but I think with him, as like you said, it's kind of like with Jordan because he would have kept playing had his knees held up, and he can still run and move like that. But in his last years in Washington, it's pretty apparent. Yeah, you can still get buckets, bro, but you can't really keep up with what's going on out there. And but with Tom, he just has to throw a slant and his deep ball is still legit. So he can
Yeah.
still hit somebody in stride, 30, 40 yards down the field. So that's kind of all you have to do as a
Yeah.
quarterback. And he plays a minimalistic style of football where he doesn't exert much energy at all. He gets the ball out quick, so he doesn't get as many hits. So in his mind, if I can still throw it 40, 50 yards, on the dime, in tight coverage, why shouldn't I keep playing? And I think that's where his brain is at. Also, it's kind of one of those things where, like Lou Holtz or Bobby Petrino, where I mean, you know, shit, Mac Brown, Nick Saban. Like these guys are old. They were old. Like Nick Saban's like in his like late 60s or
He's like,
something, or
no, no, no. It's Nick Saban's in his 70s. I'm
so
pretty
he's in his
sure.
set. Yeah, so he's
Yeah.
up there. So
Yeah.
it's kind of one of those things where now granted he's not up there in age, but those guys I kind of felt like, hell, Bobby Bowden. And it's just like if I retire, what's left?
Hmm.
And he has yeah, he has a family and he has kids, but his career
Nick
came
Saban.
first.
Nick Saban is 70 on the nose.
He's
He's
70.
70.
And so
He
he's
turned
70.
71 in October.
And he's still spry though.
That's what
Nick
I'm
Saban.
saying. Yeah.
And so, but it's one of those things where it keeps you alive. And so for Tom, even though he's not up there in age, he's hella old for football years. Honestly, he's probably the oldest person to ever put on a uniform or at least start. And so he's up there, and I think he's in this space where like if I retire, dude, well, I'm gonna go to soccer practice and football games and and recitals. That ain't it. I want to be in the locker room with the boys, with the guys. I want to get hit. I want to throw. I think he still feels like he's got it still. And this to me, and this is probably where she's pissed off at, is that it has now become very apparent to her in her world that football is higher than their marriage and their kids. And so I know he loves his kids. I mean, he kisses them in the mouth, but but it's still a thing where um when you're dealing with somebody and you're in a relationship with that person and that person has an agenda outside of the relationship, it always causes a strain. And I'm surprised because this clearly has been a buildup. So if this is true, um I'm surprised that this didn't take form earlier, when he was literally 41, 42, and everybody was like, ain't no way, and he's still out there trying to compete and do things at this rate. You want to see how much he can win. I want to see how long he can play. And if he retires at 48 or 47, this is going to accelerate it though, for sure. Because I think he does love his wife and his family. And I think this might be his last season. Um, his team isn't as talented on offense anymore. His defense is still legit. His old line is not it. Evans is getting a little older. Godwin is banged up. Then who's after that? And even
E-
though even hmm?
No, I was just gonna say Evans is injury prone too. Evans gets banged up too.
He gets banged up, but he plays games.
He
Like,
plays, yeah, but
yeah,
he's good to get banged up.
yeah, he gets
He
banged
gets
up.
nicked throughout the season. Yeah, it's pretty
Mhm.
normal for Evans to get nicked like that.
Yeah, and so he turned water into wine in New England with nobody, Julian Edelman. And not that Edelman sucks, but come on.
Yeah, yeah.
If anybody else had Edelman, he's not going to be arguably a Hall of Famer. Like Edelman's
Mhm.
arguably a Hall of Famer, not from his stats, but from his playoff performances and how key he was in those runs. It's arguable. And so nobody else would have done that. So he can elevate the talent around him. So, but at the same time, man, the league is just getting bigger, faster, and stronger. And the way teams are stacked nowadays, the way the Bucks are set up, I don't even know if they're going to be able to compete as well as they did last year. So their running back room is a struggle. So I really don't know. He's just out there just to be out there at this point. So I think this year is going to be a very pivotal year for him. I think he might call it. I think that since he keeps everything so close to the chest, um, that this level of family embarrassment, I think this might be a little bit of a wake up call for him, and he might call it after this season. So that's a theory, but we're dealing with Tom, and but yeah, honestly, if I think this didn't go down the way this went down, he'll be playing till 48 and he'll still be out there. And I think what he's doing I mean, I kind of already figured he was doing this when hell he won 5 or 6. And it was like, okay, bro, like you got it. And he wants to be the greatest athlete ever. And even though he's not athletic, it requires athleticism to throw a football as well as he does at his age. So he wants to go down, I think, as one of the best athletes ever. So I think he's trying to trump football because he already got football. So he wants to be in that pantheon, which he already is. But I think he really wants to extremely separate
He-
himself. And as you
yeah.
said, hell, it took him what 3 decades, damn near. You know what I'm saying? He played in the '90s, so he's been playing for a while. So yeah, who else is going to have this kind of run unless they do some weird, Jordan type of stuff where you got three peats and you took you lost a year or two here and then you three-peated again. That's the only way that somebody can actually get up there, but it's tough to do in the NFL. So I don't know, man. We're not going to see anybody eclipse what he's doing, at least as far as rings and all of that stuff. Statistics, the way people throw the ball now. Shout out to Josh Allen. Love that guy. If he can stay healthy and stuff like that and win some Super Bowls, I mean, he's a dynamic dude. But I really can't see anybody, Joe Burrow maybe, that's in the league now that can actually contend with that. But Tom's got it, man. But I think that that crazy gene in him is what's pushing him. And I think that this family embarrassment, because this is a family embarrassment, I would say. You don't want this. And she seems genuinely disgruntled. And I feel her on this. So it's a tough situation, man. So I hope it all pans out for the guy. Hopefully he can do some damage control and mend this somehow, some way. But yeah, man, it's very unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
Y- Yeah, I just think she's looking at it and she's saying, "What more do you want?"
Yeah.
And I think that to an Earthling, I think to an Earthling, you're gonna ask, "What more do you want?" Because for these extraterrestrials like Tom Brady,
Hmm.
only other extraterrestrials can understand what that's like. So
Hmm.
to an Earthling, it's incomprehensible that an individual who has achieved at the pinnacle of success the way that he has still wants more. And there's really no conversation to be had there because you're literally communicating on on two different planes of existence.
Hmm.
Like that's what I think is going on here. Like there was an episode of the old cartoon Justice League,
Hmm.
um called it was called To the Man Who Has Everything.
Hmm.
And so the idea was, it was Superman's birthday, and so Batman and Wonder Woman are trying to like celebrate Superman's birthday. But the idea is, what do you get Superman
Hmm.
for his birthday?
Hmm.
Like, he's Superman. He has all he can, faster than a speeding bullet, whatever, stronger than a locomotive. He has all these superpowers. What do you get that guy for his birthday? And I think with Tom Brady, it's sort of the same principle, in which if you don't understand what it's like to be psycho in that way, you're just looking at it as a foreign concept that you could never fully grasp. Like, what do you get the guy who has 7 Super Bowls? Another Super Bowl. Like, what
Hmm.
else is there? And I think for her, she's just struggling with, how do you reconcile that? And then
Hmm.
on the other end, for Tom Brady, you know, you say you feel like you suspect that he may be retiring at the end of this year. Not if he thinks he can still play. Clearly, I mean, I just feel like if he thinks he can still play, he's going to keep doing it. But the question is, how do you reconcile your decision to keep doing it with your significant other, whom you've told, "I'm done at this point"? So I think you're opening up, like, there's a lot of different angles that we can go with this, obviously, and we don't have to belabor the point. But it's just like, now you're looking at, she can perhaps start to feel betrayed because you feel like you lied to her. And this is something that can be transferred throughout relationships in general, not just them two. But
Hmm.
like, you got a wife, or you got a husband, and you don't say, "Hey man, I'm done with this," and then you renege on that. Like, that has to not feel very good. And so, it's just, how do you deal with the ramifications of feeling like someone's going back on their word?
Yeah,
And
and but
I can't imagine what that's like in that kind of household, where you're
mhm,
dealing with two people who are respectively worth, like, individually, like, over $500 million, and you have everything and you've done everything, but you still feel like there's more to do. Oh, that's crazy. But I
yeah.
I, I feel her too. I do. If this alleged stuff is true, I get it. But at the same time, I will openly acknowledge, I do not know what it's like to be in a relationship with someone who is a psycho like that. I don't know what that's like. Seriously, I don't know. And I think
Mhm.
you can only empathize if you've been in that situation before. And if you've never been in that situation, I feel like you can't judge either person, because Tom Brady's just a psycho. He's a psycho. Like, what do you do being married to Michael Jordan? How do you deal with that? How do you deal with being married? Well, Tiger Woods ain't married no more, but how do you deal with that? How do you deal with something like that? That is some extraterrestrial stuff, bro.
Yeah,
Like, for
yeah.
real. So,
Nah.
I get it. I feel her.
Mhm. Yeah, 13, they've been together for 13 years, so, um, yeah, that's not as long as I thought they were together. I had to look it up. They were together for 13 years, but, man, when you're as influenced as what's the word I'm looking for? As influencing as she is, and you have a career that you can go out there and get going yourself. She probably been waiting for the last 8 years. So yeah, man, I feel it, man. Wild stuff, man. Wild stuff. Go
Yeah,
Tom, man. Go Tom. Try
yeah,
to bend.
yeah. I just think Tom is. I literally think that, like, when we talked about Jordan, when they were doing the whole Jordan, John Morant said he could cook Jordan, and you were like, "Look, man, Michael Jordan is a sociopath." I think Tom Brady is a sociopath.
No, he is. He is.
Like, he is a psychopath. And if only other psychopaths know what that's like. I think to the 99% of the population who is not a psychopath like that, like, I feel like in certain respects, I'm crazy. I pale in comparison to
Absolutely.
whatever is going on in Tom Brady's head. I can't comprehend that. It's insane.
I wish somebody has a compilation out there somewhere. Tom Brady's like facial expressions when somebody drops the ball. At that point, but honestly, that's what makes his team so good, because he holds everybody to such a high standard, way beyond the coaches' standards.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, and I be feeling bad for those guys. Like last year or the last couple years, and Ronald Jones in the backfield, like Fournette will catch it. Ronald Jones, it'll be, and then Brady's face, Godwin would drop some. And Godwin would be, Godwin would get up and be like, he's not even going to look his direction. And this is just for a drop pass. I can
Yeah.
only imagine how Brady is in the household when it comes to football in general. Because it's like, hey, honey, where are you at? Because you're still in football. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, man, it's a wild thing, but you get what you get. She
Yeah.
wanted Captain America. She got him.
She
And yeah, she got him. And this is you know what I'm saying, the back end of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
but yeah, man, more power to them. Hopefully this is just hearsay, and hopefully he can mend this somehow, some way, because yeah, man, I think this is very unfortunate. I think both sides have legitimate cases, and I just
Yeah.
think it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not trying to call it one way or the other.
Hmm.
My thing is, I get where she's coming from, but I also feel like Brady's a psycho.
Yep.
So I'm not trying to call it one way or the other. And when
Hmm.
a guy just came off a season where he threw the most yards in the whole league and he's 45 and he doesn't throw picks, what do you tell, like, like, what do you say? Hey, man, go ahead and hang it up. For what? Like, for what? So, it's crazy. It's a very wild situation. It
It
is a
is.
very unique, wild dynamic, and I can only imagine what those conversations are like between the two
Hmm.
of them.
Hmm. Go 12.
uh,